Referee having a close look at the time. Right now, the clock is ticking. Almost inside 2 minutes. White tries to spell to his feet. He does it inside a round.
Dillian wanted to continue. The referee, of course, called it off. Do you feel that that was the right call for that to happen?
Oh, I think, yes, without a doubt. Definitely. He made the right call. I think that Dill should have stayed down and taken the 8 count, then got up. But he bounced right back up. And his equilibrium was still off. And I told him, I said, you couldn't stand up straight. The referee could not let you go out.
Good luck.
Unbelievable. And listen, we got to win the rematch.
Do you think you'll do it again? Is there a clause?
Rematch, I can't imagine him not triggering it. And he needs to be better. He will be better.
I was robbed. That's Dillian Whyte's cry, but anyone watching knows there was no robbery here. Moses Itauma dominated with speed and power. This isn't corruption, it's simply a veteran refusing to accept that he was schooled by a new generation.
Man, it's like, it's something emotional. When I talk about it, I feel like crying that,
And the boxing world quickly responds to his excuse. Buddy McGirt hears Whyte's robbery claims and dismisses them instantly. Even trainers can see it. Whyte's excuses hold no weight. If you're truly robbed, the boxing world rallies behind you. Here, nobody believes him because Itauma's win was clean, dominant, and undeniable. Whyte's own circle exposes the truth.
This is the first time me hearing it, you know what I mean? I didn't hear anything like that, so excuse me, I really couldn't elaborate on that, to be honest with you.
And it doesn't stop there. Even his own brother's words add fuel to this story. Now Dean Whyte jumps in, claiming it was all pre-planned against Dillian. Another excuse piled on top of I was robbed. But fans aren't fooled. You can't script a one-sided beating. Moses Itauma's fist told the real story, and no conspiracy theory can rewrite that night.
Implode quite quickly, but I think everyone's talking about, Dillian having an injury, and I think they've probably got wind of that. I thought that we're just gonna press early and see what we're given, and he was caught quite early on the back of the head and on the side.
And as more voices chime in, the pattern becomes crystal clear. Whyte's robbery claims are falling apart. Amir Khan's words cut through Whyte's robbery talk. It wasn't a fix, it was poor preparation. Itauma's speed, accuracy, and power were too much. If Whyte was truly robbed, training wouldn't be the issue. This proves his excuse collapses under the weight of reality.
Straight away, I think no one expected it to finish that quick.
Speed kills, as you know.
Speed kills, and he had but not only the speed, he had the power with that, and the accuracy was on point. I didn't think it was gonna. I thought it'd be the opposite, where Dillian might win the first couple of rounds with his power, but I think it just shows how strong Itauma is and how powerful he is. He is a big threat in heavyweight boxing.
And the harshest truth comes when analysts start talking about the very end of Whyte's career. Here's where the robbery excuse completely crumbles. Duke McKenzie doesn't even entertain Whyte's claim. He looks straight at the bigger picture. This is the end of Dillian Whyte's career. Because, let's be honest, if you were genuinely robbed, people would talk rematches, protests, or controversy. Instead, the conversation is about retirement. That tells you everything. Whyte isn't the victim. He's the fading veteran who got exposed by a rising star in Moses Itauma. Duke makes it clear this wasn't about bad luck or corruption. It was about a younger, sharper fighter dismantling an older man chasing paydays. Calling it robbery doesn't hide the truth. Itauma has announced himself as the new face of heavyweight boxing, and Whyte's story ends here.
And when you look at your career at the end of your career, you'll look at your bank balance and say to yourself, you know what, it was worth it. Dillian Whyte can look at his bank balance and say, last night's fight was worth it. Did he do it for the money? He probably did. Moses Itauma is a huge name, and it would have been a massive scalp to have had, but it was never going to be the case.
Mark Tibbs adds yet another nail in the coffin of Whyte's robbery claims. He admits Whyte looked in shape, but being in shape isn't enough when age and excuses catch up. Think about it. If this was truly a robbery, Whyte wouldn't need people pointing out his aches and pains. He'd have the public outcry behind him. Instead, Tibbs hints at the truth. Whyte's time has passed, his body can't deliver, and Moses Itauma exposed it in brutal fashion. The robbery line is nothing but a shield to protect an ego that can't face reality. Tibbs sees the decline for what it is, a man making excuses because admitting defeat is too painful. The fight was clean, the result clear, and Itauma's dominance unquestionable.
He's that good. I thought Dillian shaped up well. I thought he was in fantastic nick. But when you're at your twilight years and you're working on your weight, etc., it's taxing on yourself, and I'm pretty sure he had.
And just when you think the excuses can't get any weaker, more voices call out Whyte's hollow claims. Duke McKenzie's observation completely destroys Whyte's robbery excuse. He points out that Whyte looked calm, fit, and ready before the fight. No sign of injuries, no hint of disadvantage. If a fighter walks in strong and then falls apart in the ring, you can't call that a robbery. That's a failure. Moses Itauma, at only 20 years old, walked into the biggest stage of his young career and carried the pressure like a seasoned veteran. Whyte, meanwhile, crumbled under the heat and now wants to rewrite history by crying foul. Duke exposes the truth. This wasn't about unfairness, it was about one man rising while another collapsed. Itauma didn't just win, he showed composure, strength, and brilliance. While Whyte hid behind excuses, the robbery narrative gets weaker every time reality speaks.
I thought we would beat Dillian Whyte, but not with that ease. He looked so comfortable, like saying the build-up in the changing room, his ring walk, his whole sort of demeanour once he had actually got into the ring. You know, for a young guy of only 20 years of age to hold down all that pressure and not show it, it's quite impressive. But
when even Derek Chisora, a man who's gone to war with Whyte in the ring, admits sadness but calls out excuses, the "I was robbed" narrative dies on the spot. Chisora highlights the real reason. Whyte simply got caught, plain and simple. No conspiracy, no robbery, just the cold reality of boxing. If your own rivals and friends can see through your words, then the whole world knows the truth. Chisora wanted better for Whyte, but he doesn't sugarcoat it. This wasn't bad judging, it wasn't politics, it was Whyte's inability to handle Itauma's southpaw style and youthful energy. Robbery? No. Defeat? Absolutely. And hearing it from Chisora, who respects toughness above all else, makes Whyte's claims sound even more hollow. The excuses can't mask what everyone saw with their own eyes.
Hey, listen, you got caught the head on the temple, and then after that, it was a long night for him. I'm a bit sad, because I didn't want him to go out like that.
And the knockout blow to Whyte's excuse-making comes when promoters and matchmakers weigh in on his future. Eddie Hearn doesn't even try to defend Whyte's robbery excuse. Instead, he talks retirement. That says it all. If there was any legitimacy to Whyte's claim, the conversation would be about appeals, rematches, or controversy. But when your own promoter-type figure shifts focus to retirement, it proves the defeat was clean. Eddie points out the age, the inactivity, and the reality that Whyte simply couldn't live with the sharpness of Moses Itauma. That's not robbery, that's decline. This is where Whyte's excuse collapses completely. Instead of being remembered as a fighter wronged, he risks being remembered as the man who couldn't accept defeat. Hearn's blunt words are the final confirmation that Itauma's win was real, deserved, and historic. Whyte wasn't robbed, he was beaten into retirement.
You know, mojo from Dillian, but listen, it's very difficult when you're 38 years old. You've been out of the ring for a couple of years and you've just had that Tete fight, and you fight a brilliant young sharp fighter. We said that, you know, unless he gets into the fight, it's going to be a disastrous start for him, and it was more than a disastrous start.
Would you want to see Dillian retire?
Yeah, 100%.
What next for Moses? Because there was talk about Usyk and other fights.
I wanted to see him in with a live, active heavyweight, you know, because he's definitely good enough to do it.
Dave Coldwell nails the psychology behind Whyte's excuse. He isn't crying robbery because it's true, he's saying it because he can't face the reality of his decline. That's the bitter truth. For a big personality like Whyte, admitting that a 20-year-old destroyed him in such fashion is unbearable. So instead, he hides behind claims of being robbed. But fans aren't fooled. We've seen this pattern before with fading fighters who can't let go. Coldwell highlights that this fight was the punctuation mark on Whyte's career, and sadly it ended in humiliation, not glory. Moses Itauma didn't just beat him, he took away his aura. Whyte's robbery narrative is nothing but a mask for a man crushed by reality. Itauma, meanwhile, looks stronger every time Whyte denies the truth.
It's way too much for him, and it's going to be, you know, quite a nasty ending for him, a nasty ending to a career. I was worried for Dillian going into that this would be that fight, and it was. I mean, that you don't get as, you know, it can't be any worse than that to punctuate a career, to end a career.
And to twist the knife even deeper, legends of the game like Antonio Tarver see right through Whyte's excuse. Antonio Tarver exposes Whyte's "I was robbed" claim for what it truly is, an empty cry from a man who never stood a chance. Tarver makes it clear, Whyte came in with nothing but hope of landing a lucky shot, but Itauma mauled him. That's not robbery, that's a mismatch of generations. The veteran versus the young lion, and Tarver isn't surprised. He saw this coming. Whyte's excuse falls apart here because a robbery implies uncertainty, controversy, or injustice. But when seasoned legends openly admit they expected Itauma to dominate, it proves the result was inevitable. Tarver calls it straight. Whyte didn't lose because of unfairness. He lost because he's an old, washed fighter out of his depth. Itauma's victory was not stolen, it was earned in devastating fashion. Whyte's words only cheapen his legacy further.
Well, we know Dillian Whyte came in here being knocked out a couple times, wanted to see could he land a punch on this young kid, but he didn't have a chance tonight. He got mowed over, and this is a big win for a young guy. But he got to continue to fight credible opponents, and he got to get tested. He got to fight a young fighter like himself and beat a credible opponent like that, not these old, washed-up fighters that he can only just...
And with all these voices silencing Whyte's excuse, the final blow is left for the fans to decide. So here we are, Dillian Whyte screaming "I was robbed" after being dismantled by a 20-year-old phenom. But let's be brutally honest, nothing about that fight looked like a robbery. Moses Itauma came in with fire in his eyes, controlled the ring from the opening bell, and made Whyte look every bit of his age. A robbery means controversy, it means split opinions, it means the fans are demanding a rematch. But what did we see instead? Silence. Nods of agreement, the boxing world unanimously admitting that Itauma's victory was real, decisive, and unarguable. Whyte's words aren't about injustice, they're about denial. He can't accept that his era has ended. He can't admit that the young lion took his crown in such dominant fashion. That's why he clings to robbery like a lifeline. But every time he says it, he only makes Itauma's performance look even greater. Because when a veteran refuses to admit defeat, it shows just how deep the wound really is. So I ask you, is this truly the rise of the next heavyweight king in Moses Itauma and the final curtain for Dillian Whyte? Let us know below. Was it robbery or was it reality?